Let's make history. Question: would you rather a sweet lie or a bitter truth? Do you really want to know what's the truth? Or do you just want to hear things that coincides with your beliefs to boost your own ego or for whatever reason? I'm asking, which one is it before we even start? Now, definitely got to check out the new show I'm doing, History in Real Time, where I'm discussing current events, mostly politics, but current events. And it's needed. And as I said in the last show I did, think I just dropped it this morning, is that the media does us a huge disservice because it tells us only the part of the story that they want you to hear and then that they think you want to hear. And they're giving you sweet lies, basically. So, and it's damaging because people react off of this. Take, for instance, the George Floyd riots in 2020. That was billions and billions of dollars in damages across the country, plus lives lost. We don't talk about this because it was supposedly in the name of justice. However, all the facts were not given. And I was saying this back then, having arguments with people back then. So, the clip that they played, meaning the mainstream media, all the channels across the board, I believe even Fox, that they played was Derek Chauvin with his knee on George Floyd's neck/back, and the other cops holding him down while he's cuffed. And he's saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And people, bystanders are complaining. Like, he said he can't breathe. What they didn't show, but I saw, because I was following it back then. I was following the story. I follow politics and news. So I was closely following this. And I don't just look at mainstream news. I listen to podcasters. I read left-wing articles. I read right-wing articles. And so what they didn't show, the most important part, was that before George Floyd was even out of the police car, he was saying, I can't breathe. He was in the police car, I believe it was an SUV. He was in a patrol car, and he's writhing back and forth, delirious, like just rolling around in the back seat. I believe they even found drugs in the back seat. I believe it was crushed up pills that he had in the back seat that he stuffed in there. And he was saying, I can't breathe then. This is before Derek Chauvin was even on the scene. So and this is the reason why they had to call for backup, because he had what you call excited delirium. When you're on fentanyl, it's a case where you could just become psychotic out of the blue. You could just become, you could just engage in a rage. You could become enraged, out of the blue. So that's why they have a certain procedure. So when Derek Chauvin showed up, again, he was already saying, I can't breathe. So why would Derek Chauvin believe him when he had him on the ground and put his knee on his neck? Also, what they didn't tell you is that according to the Minneapolis Police Department, that is a legal thing you can do to restrain someone. And actually, he didn't even go fully into his arsenal because there were other more extreme submission techniques he could have used, which he didn't. That submission tactic that he used was in the Minneapolis Police Department training manual. If that's what the technical term for it, but you get what I'm saying. Okay? So, now let's talk about the other thing. And by the way, he had used this before because there was two lawsuits of Derek Chauvin using excessive force, which he used that same move. So why would he feel comfortable again when he had issues, using excessive force before, but in those cases, it was something different, not necessarily just that submission technique with that knee on the neck, even though he did use it. He hit the guy in the head with a flashlight, I think it was. John Pope, his name was in 2017. Check out the case, 14-year-old dude. But he's a big guy, and I believe his mother actually called a domestic violence dispute. His mother called police. Derek Chauvin shows up. He goes in. He's telling the guy to stand up. The guy's like, no. He's trying to plead his case. And as Derek Chauvin gets closer to him, he just spazzes out and starts yelling and refuses to stand up. So he hit him in the head with the flashlight, which he shouldn't have done. But what I'm saying is that, and then he restrained him by putting his knee on his neck. These people live. This is why he's using this. He was allowed to use this. And so then when you have the autopsy of George Floyd, if you look at the autopsy, George Floyd didn't die from asphyxiation. He died from a heart attack, basically. Now, how they won the case, which I believe was the same thing, the same situation as the OJ case. Everybody knows OJ did it. There was no other suspects. Everybody knows OJ killed his wife and her lover. Everybody pretty much knows that. The reason they did it, I covered this also on my last YouTube channel. The reason that he was found guilty was because they were on the heels of the Rodney King riots. So they knew, had they found OJ guilty, which he should have been, the city would have lost it and went berserk. And they couldn't afford that, especially just after the Rodney King riots, which was severe. So they ruled, being that he didn't die of asphyxiation, they ruled that his heart attack was caused by Derek Chauvin's knee on his back and neck. However, there was someone else who did the autopsy initially that said that he didn't die. He didn't die from that initially. So they're saying that caused him to have a heart attack. The part they didn't tell you is that in his system, well, they did say it, but they're trying to act like it wasn't the cause of it. He had fentanyl, methamphetamine, and he's had been doing these for years. So he was already, and I think he had high blood pressure even. He was already at risk for a heart attack. So who's to say that a legal submission hold that was used on him and had been done over and over to other people with no death occurring was the thing that caused his heart attack? The family went and got another autopsy done by Baden. But he's a celebrity doctor, and he said that it was asphyxiation, but it wasn't ruled asphyxiation. He said that after the fact. It was already a high-profile case. But there's a coroner who, the initial, I'm sorry, not necessarily the coroner, the official person who did the autopsy said that it was not asphyxiation. And when they, again, in the trial, they also said this. So, anyway, these are the reasons why now there's murmurs of people trying to encourage President Trump to pardon Chauvin. Also, keep in mind that there is no proof after all this time. There's still no proof that Chauvin was a racist. Out of all that stuff going on, all those situations and all the rioting, all the media hype going on during that time, such a high-profile case, if it was any witnesses that he said nigger or that he said any sort of racist comment, do you think that wouldn't have been dug up? Hell yeah, it would have been dug up. That never came out. There's no evidence this guy was a racist. So he's a cop in a city, and cops in cities tend to use extreme techniques. So when you hear about, oh, they're thinking about pardoning Derek Chauvin, don't get up in arms. Don't get emotional. Think about the facts. Does this man deserve to sit in jail for another, 10, 20 years, however much longer he has? They almost killed him in there. He got shanked up several times, almost lost his life. He came close to losing his life. So if it's true that he did what he was supposed to do according to the training manual, that was a submission technique that he was allowed to do, then what was it that he did wrong? Maybe some people say he stood there too long. Now again, I spoke about excited delirium, and this is why he held him there. This is why he held him there, is because when you're in a state of excited delirium, even if you're like unconscious, it's known that you could just come to and start engaging in like maniac behavior again. This is a fact. This is why they have these procedures, which he did follow. So I said it at the time, wasn't very, very vocal about it because people were so emotional off of this. Nobody wanted to hear it. And that's the problem. People are saying, oh, this is an attack against black people. They just want black people to start rioting, so forth and so on. But that's not true, because when black people were rioting during the George Floyd riots, they let everything go on. They just let them go. And Trump made a statement at that time during his first term, like, oh, you start looting and we're going to start shooting. Something to that effect that some former president said, I believe. When a looting starts, the shooting starts, I think he said. Which I don't blame him, because people were enraged about what they thought happened to George Floyd. So they started just breaking in stores, looting, massive looting going on across the whole country. Like, really? You're complaining about an injustice, but yet you're stealing sneakers and electronics. Like, how is that helping your cause? And this, when they saw all this going on, this is why they made sure that they expressed the information that was in the autopsy in a certain way so that they can get the conviction, stating that, again, that the knee on the back/neck is what caused him to have a heart attack. So, just giving you the truth, so you don't have to come in the comments, all kind of insults and all. Hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. Also, I think, lastly, it's an insult to black people to use George Floyd to personify the black movement for so-called injustice or for black people. He is not a representation for black people. There are black people everywhere around the country. You could, from the best neighborhoods to the worst neighborhoods, that are getting up, going to work, getting up, conducting their business, and taking care of their families. Okay? The people like George Floyd and the people who commit the murders and the people who make neighborhoods, bad neighborhoods, that's a small percentage. It is not representative of black Americans, and I believe that that is an insult. It's another reason why I'm making it my business to bring this information out there, because it is not. And anybody who feels that George Floyd, any black person, black American rather, that feels that George Floyd is a symbol, an avatar for the black American plight, you need to really check your views and check your subconscious on how what you truly think about black Americans, what you truly think about yourself. George Floyd is not a representation of black Americans. He's one of the small percentages that actually make black Americans look bad, which they don't deserve, because again, it's such a small percentage. Anyway, food for thought, something for you to chew on. Think about, listen to what I'm saying, do your own research. If I said something that wasn't correct, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe.